Cheers. Hi, welcome to the 2023-2024 Faces of History for Trent River Campus. We're so glad you can join us tonight. I'm Allison Davis, and I've had the pleasure of tutoring these 4th through 6th grade kids this year. And we had a lot to cover. We've learned grammar and writing styles from 2 different textbooks. Our first one is the Essentials put out by Classical Conversations, and the second textbook is from IEW, Excellence in Writing, Institute of Excellence in Writing, and this year was based on American history. So we have provided, maybe that's not the right word, we have some famous Americans that are joining us tonight. A little bit more about our class. We meet for 2 hours a week for 24 weeks a year. And during the first part of the class is when we do the essentials part, and then they say, "Can we have a break?" And I say, "Sure." And so they take a break, and then we come back and do the IEW part, which is more like writing skills and how to start a sentence in different ways and things that are interesting to add to your paper so it doesn't sound kind of dull. And then we have some math games to wrap it up. So I have been learning a lot. This is my second year tutoring essentials, and I've learned a lot. A lot of the stuff that I never even covered in school. And so I've been learning how to diagram a sentence along with these students. So I was going to give them an opportunity to fill you in on some of the stuff we've covered. Can you guys tell me some dress-ups that we put into our sentences? Okay, ly adverbs, strong verbs, and short sentences. Anybody else going? Which one? A because clause. That makes your sentence a little more interesting. What else do we have? End marks. Yep. We want to make sure we have the right end mark at our end of our sentence. Which one? A who-which clause. Alliteration is something we put in there too. And then we have different ways of starting sentences with a preposition or a subject. So all of that is stuff that they wrap into their papers. They've had a chance to write 19 papers this year. And they write it at home, and it gives them a chance to share it in class in front of their peers, so they have practice presenting as well. And our big project is Unit 8, which is the Faces of History paper. So they have all written a paper that is 5 paragraphs about their famous American. And instead of reading those to you tonight, we're going to do an interview where I'll interview our famous Americans. But I want you to be able to view those papers. And so on your program, there's a QR code. And if you scan that QR code, it'll take you to a Google Drive with all 7 of their papers in there. So they put so much work into them, and they're excited for you to be able to read them as well. All right, so for tonight's presentation, we're going to share a little bit about each student's famous American that they chose. And I'm the lucky one that gets to interview them. And we're going to start with Sacagawea. You know that? Okay. Can you tell me about your childhood?
It started wonderful. I was born in 1787 in the Rocky Mountains in Idaho, and I was part of the Shoshone tribe. But one day it turned very sad when I was 10. I was captured by the Manitou Indian tribe. While it was sad, I learned a lot. I learned how to farm and got my name Sacagawea, which means bird woman. I do not know what my original name was.
Okay. What was your biggest adventure?
I met 2 men in 1804 named Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. They brought me on a crazy adventure west to expand the United States.
What's your favorite story?
One day we were crossing a lake when a huge wave hit the boat, and we almost lost all our things. All the men ran around, and I was the only one come with a baby on my back.
Wow, that's crazy. What is your favorite food?
Berries, because I knew what was poison and what was not.
How did you know what was poison and what wasn't?
From my tribe.
How did you pass away?
It is a mystery. Some people say I died from an illness at 25. Some people say I died at 84. My tribe believed that I died at the good old age of 95.
95. Wow. All right, thank you. All right. Next, we're going to be joined by Laura Ingalls Wilder. Tall as me. All right, can you tell me about your childhood?
Sure. I was born in the big woods of Pepin, Wisconsin in 1867. I live with my mom, pa, sister Mary, and our dog Jack. We were a pioneer family and were part of the westward expansion. We moved to several different territories in the west and into homes built by pa and ma. We traveled by a covered wagon pulled by 2 horses. There were no set roads, only trails left by other pioneers. One of my favorite memories was when we had moved back to the big woods from Indian Territory and had a huge feast with our family. My favorite part of the feast were the roasted pigtails and the balloon made of the pig's bladder. My childhood was filled with wonderful memories of living off the land and being taught life skills from Mom and Pa.
How did your sister Mary come to lose her sight, and how did that impact your life?
Well, when we were living in Walnut Grove, Mary became ill and lost her vision. Pa said that I would become Mary's eyes. I described everything for her, including my schoolwork, so that she could continue learning. I worked in Walnut Grove to help earn money for Mary's education. At the age of 15, I received my teaching license and took a job 12 miles from our home in DeSmet so that I could help Pa and Ma pay for Mary's tuition at the school for the blind.
Wow. How did you meet Almanzo Wilder?
Oh, this is a good story. The winter of 1880 to 1881 was the worst winter in the history of Dakota Territory. There was no food or fuel for our fire. Almanzo Wilder and his brother Royal, who also lived in the town of DeSmet, traveled in the treacherous conditions over the prairie to buy wheat for the people of DeSmet. This helped the people of our town survive that awful winter. At the age of 15, when I began teaching at the school 12 miles from my home in DeSmet, Almanzo Wilder picked me up on the weekends so that I could go home to DeSmet to see my family. Almanzo and I became great friends and eventually were married in 1885 when I was 18.
How did you and Almanzo end up in Mansfield, Missouri?
Well, shortly after our marriage in 1886, we had our daughter who we named Rose. In 1894, my little family and I traveled to Missouri to look for a new home. We traveled with all of our belongings, including a coop of live chickens who gave us eggs, which helped to feed us along our journey. We bought a farm for $100 in Mansfield, Missouri, which I named Rocky Ridge. We built a small house on Rocky Ridge, and eventually we added on to it. I lived at Rocky Ridge for the rest of my life.
When did you become an author, and what inspired you to write the Little House on the Prairie books?
At the age of 60, I began writing the Little House on the Prairie books, which told tales about my life and adventures as well as stories of the American pioneers. I wanted the world to know what life was like for a pioneer family.
How did you see the world change throughout your lifetime?
Goodness, in my lifetime I witnessed the development of telephones, electric lights, cars, airplanes, computers, and television. At the age of 87, I had the opportunity to take my first airplane ride to see my daughter Rose.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to help our next one join us. This is Miss Helen Keller. Great. All right. Can you tell me a little about yourself?
Sure. I was born in 1880 in Tuscumbia, Alabama. Sadly, I lost my vision and hearing after a severe illness at the age of 19 months. I received wonderful support from my family and my teacher, Ann Sullivan. As an adult, I became an activist for the blind and deaf. I taught people that they could reach their goals no matter what their disabilities were.
Can you explain why March 3rd, 1887 became one of the most important days of your life?
I would love to. On March 3rd, 1887, my new teacher Ann Sullivan traveled over 1,000 miles to my home in Alabama. I was not a very obedient child and was not a good student for Ann. My teacher found a cottage on my family's property and decided that she and I would go live there away from the main house and my family, who did not know how to handle me. She took me on a very long ride to get to the cottage, so I would think that we traveled a long distance away from my family. The first few days were difficult, however, my teacher managed to teach me the basics of American Sign Language by signing the letters into my hand. My teacher pumped water over my hand and spelled the word water. That was only the beginning. In just 4 short months, I learned over 400 words.
That's amazing. Can you tell me a little about your college years?
Yes, my goal as a young adult was to attend Radcliffe College for Women. Excitingly, in 1900, I was accepted into Radcliffe. I quickly made friends, and my friends gifted me with a precious dog that I named Sir Thomas. Magnificently, in 1904, I became the first deaf-blind college graduate. I graduated Radcliffe with high honors.
That's awesome. All right. What did you do after graduating from college?
Well, after college, I became an activist for people with disabilities. In 1924, I started a job working for the American Foundation for the Blind. As a counselor, I traveled to 35 countries to help raise awareness for sight impairment. I taught people with disabilities that they could reach their goals. My life was filled with silence and darkness, but I had courage and determination to light my days.
And what is one of your favorite quotes?
I once said the best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart.
All right, thank you so much. Help you back to your seat. All right, next we have Mr. Al Capone. All right. Yep. All right, Al, you want to hold this? How and when did you get to a point where you decided on your life of crime?
When I lived in New York as a teenager, I would illegally sell alcohol to strangers until I moved to Chicago.
And why did you move to Chicago?
It was easier to make money.
When you say you moved so it was easier to make money, what was your primary source of income?
Usually, I would say I didn't believe in prohibiting things that the people would want. Really, I was just in it for the cash.
And why did you do that? And what made you ignore the laws? Just for the cash.
Yeah, I don't have that written down.
Oh, okay. Did the people of Chicago know about what you did?
No, I was famous to the people of Chicago. I reveled in attention, like when I appeared at baseball games. And I was donating to several charities so I could have a good reputation. That made me known as modern-day Robin Hood. But eventually, we had an incident where several people died and were killed by Johnny Torrio, and he was shot. After which, Johnny retired, leaving me as the leader. And after that, the public found out about me.
After the public found out about what you did law enforcement take action?
You can tell I didn't put much work into the script. Law enforcement officers established a force of people called the Untouchables just to catch me, and they eventually did.
And how did they find you?
They searched for a while until they found files under me for tax evasion. Then they knew where to start, and soon after that, they saw me and confronted me in my own hotel. Can you believe that? The nerve on this guy? This one guy confronting me in front of my 5 men. I'm Al Capone. Who does this guy think he is? Superman?
Why weren't you taken by law enforcement when you were confronted?
After I was captured and confronted in court, I was sent to Alcatraz with a $1,000 fine.
And what brought your life as a criminal to an end?
When I was in prison, I had a stroke and then had a cardiac arrest to finish me off.
That'll do it. All right. Thanks, bud. Next, we have Katherine Johnson. Ooh. All right, Katherine, where were you born?
I was born in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia on August 26, 1918.
Tell me about your family.
I was first married to James Goebel and had 3 daughters. Their names were Joylette, Constance, and Catherine. Sadly, James passed from brain cancer, and I remarried Colonel James Johnson.
Can you tell me about your jobs?
I first started as an elementary teacher. I taught math and French. But later on, I decided to work for NASA as a human computer. I moved on to a higher level on the NASA team and worked on the mission Friendship 7.
What brought you fame?
My mathematics skills helped me stand out from an early age. I was able to work with astronauts and a team of mathematicians that helped calculate the trajectories that were crucial to safely fly men to the moon and back. What made my job more difficult was the fact that I was a woman and an African American woman at that.
You gained the trust of many astronauts. Can you share a story about that?
Oh, sure. By the time Project Mercury happened, they were using digital computers. John Glenn found my calculating more trustworthy, and he said, have the girl check the numbers, and if she says they're good, I'm ready to go. Of course, I ran the numbers, and they were correct. John Glenn was good to go.
Can you tell me some of the awards you were given?
Too many to name, but a few of them are the Silver Snoopy Award. I was awarded the NASA Langley Research Center Special Achievement Award 5 times, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom given to me by President Obama.
And how did you pass away?
I passed peacefully at the age of 101 in the year 2020.
Thank you, Catherine. Next, we have Mr. Neil Armstrong. Can you tell me about your childhood?
I was born in Wapakoneta, Ohio on August 5th, 1930. I dreamed of floating in the sky. I used to build model airplanes out of balsa wood, tissue paper, and glue. These little airplanes even helped the war efforts by helping pilots learn the shapes and colors of enemy planes versus friendly planes.
How did you end up in the Navy?
I heard the U.S. Navy was offering scholarships. Though I wasn't really interested in a naval career, I thought it would be worth the money for college.
Can you tell me about your time in the Korean War?
I went on 78 missions and flew an F-9F Panther jet. During a mission after my right wing struck a cable, it broke off. I managed to fly that broken plane into safe territory before ejecting to safety.
How did you get into NASA?
NASA was looking to hire test pilots who had studied engineering or science for their astronauts, plus a few other things. I met every requirement.
Can you tell me about your time at NASA and your missions?
My first mission was the Gemini 8 project, which practiced docking in space. I managed to successfully dock the two spacecraft, but one thruster remained on, forcing it into a 30-degree tilt while spinning. Just before we lost consciousness, I undocked the craft and we returned to Earth safely. My next big mission was perhaps my most famous, Apollo 11. We made a successful launch, and Buzz Aldrin and I became the first men on the moon. It took us 3 days, 3 hours, and 49 minutes to travel to the moon.
What is the quote you are most famous for?
The quote I'm most famous for is, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." I actually meant to say one small step for a man, but you get the point.
All right, thank you. All right, and last we have Michael Jordan. Jordan. All right, can you share a mentor or someone who has a significant impact on your career?
For sure. My big bro was like my basketball coach. He showed me cool moves, cheered me on, and encouraged me when I felt down. He taught me to keep practicing and never give up. Coach Smith was awesome too. He was like a second father to me. He wasn't just about basketball. He taught me about teamwork and always giving me my best. And my parents, they've been my biggest supporters since day one. Whether it was driving me to practice, cheering me on at games, or just being there when I needed to talk. They've always had my back. They've taught me the importance of determination, respect, and humility. And I wouldn't be here where I am today without their love and encouragement. They're the real MVPs in my book.
How do you handle setback and failures, and what have they taught you?
Well, setbacks and failures are just part of the game. They're going to happen no matter who you are. But what's important is how you respond to them. For me, every setback was just another opportunity to get better, to learn and grow. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career, lost almost 300 games. But each time I used that failure as fuel to come back stronger. It taught me flexibility, perseverance, and importance of never giving up.
Can you share a valuable lesson you've learned through your career?
Absolutely. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is the value of hard work and dedication. Talent only gets you so far. It's what you do with it that really matters. I didn't become the player I am by freewheeling on talent alone. I put the work day in and day out. Whether it was practicing my jump shot 4 hours or hitting the gym before sunrise, I was always pushing myself to be better. And that's something that has been stuck with me throughout my career and beyond.
Can you share a story of overcoming a major obstacle or setback in your career?
Sure thing. One of the biggest obstacles I faced in my career was my father's passing when I decided to retire from basketball and pursue a career in baseball. It was a huge risk and a lot of people doubted whether I could make it back to the NBA after being away from the game for so long. But I didn't let the doubters get to me. I worked my tail off day in and day out until I was ready to make my comeback. And when I did, I came back stronger than ever, leading my team to 3 more championships. It just goes to show that no matter how big the obstacle, with hard work and determination, anything is possible.
Thank you. All right, so I have one more little thing to do. But first of all, you guys, that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Okay, so as I said earlier, Essentials starts in 4th grade, so they do it 4th, 5th, and 6th. And we have 3 students who have finished their 3 years and are ready to move up to 7th grade or challenge or whatever the Lord brings to their path. So if I could have Emma Kate Van Domelin, and Cooper Curtis, and Nora Davis join me. All right. Thank you, guys. All right, that's all I've got. They have their boards out in the lobby for you to take a look at. There's some refreshments, and just enjoy hanging out with our famous Americans. Thank you for coming.